So this morning I was listening to a podcast where the lady was talking about the different kinds of ways that people attach, and this is in the context of romantic relationships. Now, I think there are lots of overlaps with other areas of life and other types of relationships, but in the case of romantic relationships, he was talking about how that there's the anxious attached, and there is the avoidant attached, and then there's secure. So secure is pretty healthy. It's people who tend to, in a relationship, tend to stay together in a relationship if they're both secure. It's pretty healthy situation. But I think it's a continuum though, and it's kind of interesting to think, well, what am I, and what's my relationship with my wife like, and so the anxious attached would be someone who primarily is their main fear is of being abandoned or and so for them the reassurance that they need is that their relationship is secure, and if someone, they could tend to push too hard in a relationship to keep it going, when maybe the other person is not into them, just because they're anxious about it, and their kind of default mode is a very proactive mode to try to keep that relationship going. And it may work in other areas of life. This lady was talking about how in other areas of life she was able to ask for what she wanted, to push and to get it, and be rewarded for it, but it wasn't working in her romantic relationship, and or in her dating life. And so when it comes to and then the other type of sort of unhealthy attachment is the avoidant attachment. And this one is probably the one I identify with a little more closely. And this one is where you don't let people, your main fear is of being smothered. You don't want to let people get too close to you, or, hang around you too much or whatever. And so you may get in a scenario where you've had a great time with someone, but then you're like, now go away, I got to focus on work or something like that, and you just don't want to have your freedom removed. You don't want to be smothered by this other person. And it's kind of interesting because I have had a tendency, I think, like, I want the people I love to be around me. So I want to be in like general proximity. I want to have some access to them. I want them to be in my life. I want them to be maybe even on the same property. Like I feel nice. I feel good. I feel better if there's people around that love me and that I love. But at the same time, I can kind of very easily default to kind of ignoring them at the same time. So I'm listening to something on my phone, or doing this or that, and not actually talking, engaging, really connecting with the people in my environment. And so and I think probably it's probably not unusual for the anxious attachment and the avoidant attachment type people to maybe start something but not be able to continue it. Now, I do think that I'm very blessed that me and my wife are both fairly secure. But even, like I said, I think it's on a spectrum, and I think that we're somewhere on that continuum probably. And we have done some emotional healing work and some things like that to try to help us have a healthier marriage and to live happier lives in general. But that was pretty interesting. I also thought about it in terms of like a sales context, where to me, like, sales is like this kind of interesting mirror of like what's inside of me from an emotional standpoint. And am I, some people are geared to where they can more easily go out and pursue the business or the yes or the no, with less fear of rejection. Other people, it's almost too much. They just can't do it, basically. I have done some cold calling in my time back when I had my roofing business. I did not like it, and would often, I suppose, find ways to avoid doing it. And I think the business might have been a pretty good success potentially if I'd have loved to do that, if I was really good at it. But neither one of those I would say was probably true. And so, anyway, it's just these human relationships are interesting. It's interesting how we have these sort of these pretty deeply rooted tendencies that tend to go with us throughout life. And you have 60 and 70-year-olds who are responding to people in ways that they learned and became ingrained in them from like the age of 5. And this is pretty wild stuff. Now, I don't think it's just I think there's a variety of factors, right? I think there's spiritual, and there are certainly, what we're talking about is emotional, but I think the spiritual interface is there. I think life experience, if you have traumatic experiences, etc., that all plays in. If you had to learn ways to cope with your relational environment as a kid, and also even just your brain chemistry, I think is a big deal. And I think brain health and brain chemistry is also a pretty interesting thing as well. But I will perhaps save that for another video. So anyway, thanks for tuning in. Catch you next time.